Okay, to do the chalices, I recommend that you guys start with bat pins, a bat mate. So that's what this like floppy situation is. It's near the tiles underneath the sink over there. And then get one of these. I don't know what they're called, but they're hanging on the pegboard. And then get at least 2 tiles. You're gonna want one for your cup and one for your foot, okay? So the 1 pound cup, and this is up to you. I just suggest that this is probably a good 8-ounce pour. You know, if we're gonna use it for wine or something like that, this is a good place to start. Now, because this is a very slick surface, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're getting it well attached. Do a little like yanks back and forth to get the friction going so that it actually sticks. Okay. And I'm using the super hard clay again, so I'm gonna cone it a few times. So coning is just like squeezing from the pinky side of your hand and then squeezing up and in, and then I'm gonna push down with the backs of my thumbs. Also, if this bothers you, just try not to like focus on it too much, or don't use it, okay? Just don't look at it. Okay, and then push it back down, rock your wrist back. I'm gonna do that again. This is so hard. I don't know why I keep trying to use this clay. Okay, now we're going to only open up a little bit because we want a really, what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim this cup's base to be completely round on the bottom. So it won't be able to sit upright at all until we put that foot on it, okay? So when I go to open up, I'm only going to open up like 1 inch, if that, just a little bit, okay? You want to leave enough foot on it so that you don't trim through the base. Of course, compress the floor like you do normally. And then do a donut if you feel like that you've wonked the rim. Okay, do a donut. And then we're going to go straight up. We'll worry about the shape later. Just take a nice big straight vertical pull. And then hang out on the top as we always do. Compress the rim with a lobster like we always do. Wedge your clay better than I did. Okay. Okay, my inside hand, because we're trying to create that like bowl shape on the inside, my inside hand is kind of swooping like in a soft J shape, a very curved motion. So it's less rigid than the right angle that we're used to making with a cup, which is what we've been doing for a while. Okay, compress. Something is making the wheel sound funny. Okay, dig underneath. We're gonna keep working that J shape out and up. So think of the top of the J is this, and that like J part here is down the shoulder. Compress. Okay, I'm going to try to make this as like nice and thin as possible, because you want kind of like a delicate shape, but don't make it so thin that it's not functional too. Like, okay, so compress. I'm gonna get in there with a rib now and try to refine it. Now the bottom doesn't have to be totally curved now because we're gonna trim it. So don't worry about it being squarish at the bottom because you're totally gonna trim it. Is everything okay?
Yeah. So what the top is now is actually the bottom.
No, this is the top.
This is okay.
This is the top, yep. And I will give you a little, like a fun hack. When you want to make like a nice drinkable rim for like a cup or a mug or something like that. So normally the lobster that I've been showing you is just a flat finger on the top. If you angle that finger in, it makes like a nice, like a bevel in, and then that is really nice to drink from, and also it drips down the side less. So, and I would finish that up with a little rib sharpening, okay? Okay, I'm gonna call that good. And then I'm gonna get all of the water off of the tile and water out of the inside. And then I'm gonna cut it, okay? So it's a simple cup when you're just making the top of it, but when you put the two together, then that's when it looks fancy. So cut, or just slide it off, I guess. Okay, well, it's clearly severed from the tile. Take, there's a bunch of like butter knives up there, so use the butter knife to help you pry the tile off. And then you can just get a board and put them on the board, okay? Alright. Now the foot part of it. So this is a ½ pound, or a little more than a ½ pound. I'm going to probably cone it one time. And, okay, I'm gonna go all the way to the wheel. So we're throwing the cup right side up, and we're throwing the foot right side up, okay? So we're gonna go all the way to the wheel. And we haven't done that in this class yet, have we? Okay, so now, before you still go, like, start to pull open, you need to be pressing down as equally hard as you're pulling open. Okay, so it's a down and a forward towards you. And we're gonna open it up, and we're not looking at the inside width, we're looking at the outside width for the width of your foot. So to have a foot nice and balanced with this shape of cup, I would probably want it, maybe not quite as wide as this, but close to it, okay? Just for visual balance and also physical balance. So maybe this isn't enough clay, I don't know, let's find out, okay? You can also add like a ½ pound to it, to be like ¾ of a pound. Let's see. Okay, good enough, I guess. So, compress the top. And when you're pulling open, try to get as much clay in this ring as possible. So I took a little bit off of the floor because I didn't do that great of a job. So try to get as much clay off of the tile and into your ring as possible. From this point, then you can start to squeeze, and we're starting to pull in and up. So pause at the top, compress. So this guy's gonna be a small foot. So I'm going to start to squeeze again and start to really yank towards the center. Okay, hang out, squeeze at the top. And then, let's see, you need to be mindful of how much clay is at the bottom. You want to have enough so it doesn't come off the tile. But you also want to try to get as much as you can up so that you've got that clay to work with. Again, if you're like, I don't know how to manage that, just give yourself more clay. It's going to be fine. Okay. So make this cone. Don't get it too thin here. This is important to not get it too thin there because that's where you're going to want to make that attachment. Okay, so I'm going to start to get the water out of the inside. And I'm going to start to collar my little foot. Not necessarily the top quite yet because I like that shape. The width, I mean, but I'm squeezing with the very tips of my fingers to start to choke hold and make that start to narrow and narrow and narrow. So compress if you can after every single one of those collaring. That's what this is called, collaring. And then you can turn this guy out. So it's just like a little bit of flattening it over one of your fingers. Okay, so you can visualize it by just literally like hovering it over, okay? It doesn't have to be too wide, just about the size of your foot. And then this guy is gonna attach to that guy, or vice versa rather. And then you can clean up the edge of this just like you would anything else with the bottom of your rib tool. And it makes it nice and clean. And then I would just go over it with your sponge. Now, because this is the part where you're going to attach it to that, this part needs to not dry out, okay? Because they're on the tiles, it will be slower to dry out than if it was on a board, but it is something you're definitely going to want to have to manage, okay? So when you cut it off, just be, it will kind of warp a little, but, you know, hopefully it'll work. It's gonna be fine. Okay, so then we're going to set these aside. For next time, we'll get them leather hard, we're going to trim this, and then we'll put that guy on top. and attach it, okay? All right, thank you.